Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you and peace out to the rest of you. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media signing black and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. You could consider this to be part 2 of the same rant that I last uploaded right before this one. I want to say this to some Muslims, same Muslims actually, about whom I was speaking earlier, previously, with no hatred again, but with an understanding of the severity and the severity of the necessity of Muslim men to understand how jacked up the situation is. Unfortunately, many Muslims or Muslim men with the red pill are going to be the ones most likely to validate the preferences of sisters today. And the preferences, as I've stated before, cannot be the standards. And before anybody questions and asks something that's going to really frustrate me if they ask, I'm not talking about Abu American again. See, Abu American's looking for a husband for his daughter, and he said he is looking for the balance between between the academics and the protective qualities. He's not looking for the ones who are very academically driven, but who would not protect his daughter in an emergency. And he's, on the other hand, not looking for the ones who will protect his daughter in an emergency, but don't have enough of the academics to earn a living. I understand that as a father. Because, you see, that's not only what I look for as a son-in-law. I look for that in friends, in buddies. I do not look for those who are extreme in either direction. We are a balanced nation, and extremities are called such for a reason, and they lead to other problems. But unfortunately, we're not perfect, even as Muslims, and we fall into extremities in various ways. And one of them is in our approach to the sisters. Now, I said that I was upset, not hateful, but that I was upset to hear a particular Muslim man go in on a black-pilled writer, pretty much saying, and I hate to say this term, pretty much saying, you're so pussy. You see, some of us, when we find certain things, and it's very easy for young guys with plenty of testosterone and who've learned something about manhood to make this mistake of thinking that because they've discovered certain things like lifting weights, and they've come to realize how women assess the manhood of men, and that they have passed these assessments, that other men are therefore just too pussy. And I myself have a problem with men that are half men or who act like half men. I knew a guy when I lived in Atlanta, my first job living there, and he was in the initiating training class with me, and he got promoted with me every time I got a promotion. His name was Chris. I will not say his last name. He was African American, but he was of a mixture. And his father, I believe, was from the Middle East. But I don't know how much he grew up with his dad. I know he was largely raised by his mom. And he had buck teeth and probably still has them. He was one of those goody two-shoes type guys, even as an adult. We took customer service calls, and anytime he got compliments, he would say, well, would you mind telling my manager that? And so he got a lot of supervisor compliments from customers because he would solicit them. People got sick and tired of hearing him say that from 2 and 3 cubicles away. He had this nervous laugh whenever anybody reprimanded him, and women really went in on him. He got into a long-distance relationship with the niece of one of our colleagues. And a few months later, they weren't together anymore. Long-distance relationship. We lived in Atlanta. She lived somewhere in Indiana. And, of course, they didn't last long anyway. So, in the end, I understood that he was a half man. There was something missing. And it would have been easy for me to just go in on him and take digs at him and call him all kinds of punanis and this sort of thing. But I realized that while I don't have to approve of it, I don't need to do all of this either. I also had to come to an understanding. He only knew what he knew because he had been raised by whom he had been raised. No one sat him down and explained this to him. No one showed it to him by example, apparently, as well. Didn't make a difference. He couldn't know. And so it's with this in mind that I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to say in a calm voice to that particular Muslim coach, if you will, red pill coach, and I wouldn't say dating coach, and to others who don't know. If you simply are not told at a young age how your manhood is assessed by these ladies, you're not going to know, and therefore you're going to fail by default. And that's not something for which I'm even willing to blame the men, because again, we understand the ladies aren't being honest. And this same Muslim gentleman in the UK has a video out telling us 3 reasons that women will not say what it is they want in men. 1, they don't know. I forgot the second. The third is because by not telling you, they maintain some power over you. And even though that dries them up downstairs, they want to maintain this power over you. Why do they insist on maintaining over you that which would make them disqualify you and not attracted to you anymore? Because they want to eliminate you. And then they hit the wall and they want to stop being so eliminative and exclusive. Then they want to be more reasonable. And it was from him bringing up this point that I recorded what I recorded about how we should handle those who come off of the misandry feminism, but only after they've hit the wall or hit it prematurely because they've had some other man's kids. But understand, sir, Mr. Coach, that if somebody with a black pill mindset emails you and says that it's over before it even gets started for some guys, understand that these men are not making that up. It really is that bad. You just wouldn't know nothing about that because you're 6'3", and you yourself said, well, yeah, I've got certain advantages. Yeah, I have them. But if you have disadvantages, develop something else in place of that. Now, that is partially true, but you didn't mention the importance of never rewarding the women in the environment that penalized you for the natural disadvantages for which you started off. You don't reward them. So, and you also said something about acting the part and having it be real. How could you say that? You were right when you said that the women could sniff out fake and the inauthentic. That's true, but you forgot the other flip side of that. Western women will find something to be fake when it's not. They're always trying to find, or they're always weeding out certain things, but because they're so exclusive, they're going to weed out what they should not. They're not including what they should weed out. That's not their problem. It's the opposite. So let's say that you are not 6'3". Let's say you're not even 6 feet. You were actually 5'6". And you go to the gym and you have a physique they like. And you've built a successful business. It's the business that's going to draw them to you, and the physique that will somewhat sweeten the deal. When they can get rid of that 5'6" man with the physique they like for a taller man with a successful business and the physique, they're going to leave that 5'6" man. You didn't explain that part. And also, when you're 5'6", let's say you're 5'6", and you have confidence, but they don't know about the business that you built, and they don't know your physique because it's not bulging out of the suit. It's just you have it if you take your clothes off and it's visible. Then they assume, sir, that that confidence is arrogance or that it's fake and that there's real low self-esteem underneath. Either way it goes, they're going to assume an unhealthy extreme because they want to. And there are men who face this. I know because I faced it, and I'm not even short. I faced it, and I don't even have a feminine figure. I faced it, and I don't have a disability or anything of that nature. I faced it because I wasn't dark enough and my hair wasn't nappy enough. Every good trait was reinterpreted to be something bad. I was over-scrutinized, and I didn't understand what was going on until it was told to me. And even now, a friend of mine with a similar phenotype, but he's from the Midwest, can't understand what the hell I went through. He can't get it because he's older than me and he grew up in the Midwest. So he grew up in an environment in which the same phenotype was an unfair advantage to him. That's what happened in his life. So when I told him what was explained to me, mind you, I come from a different part of the country and I'm years younger, it does apply to me. The lady that explained it was not making this up, and he tries to belittle her at times. And I've had to tell him several times, the lady was not hostile. She was not an enemy. She was simply explaining to me what everybody else would not explain. She was saying, this is what they don't want you to know, because then that takes the guilt off of you. But it puts it on them. Then they got to admit that they're just as shallow, they're actually more shallow than men are. And they're not ready to admit this. Now, if at a normal height, not taller than average, not shorter than average, at a normal weight, a normal musculature, a normal body fat percentage, everything being normal, I can face this because they don't want to be seen out in public with a man that looks like they're now a mixed couple, even though it was not a mixed couple. What do you think that men who are actually short or who just can't build much muscle have to deal with? You're 6'3". And see, there's a non-Muslim man, Lonnie Spence, who talked about this. He said, you don't let them tell you anything about self-improvement, and you don't let them tell you about how you can do better if this is what they're dealing with. You need, in order to know how to do better, dealing with your normalities or even your subnormalities, you're going to have to find that out from those who faced the same things and overcame them, and you don't see people talking about that. The ones talking about how you can just somehow do better with them are like you. A non-Muslim called you on this. And by the way, he's, I forgot how tall he said I think he might be 6'9", but he said that even he got mistreated. He was able to get into relationships, but they would mistreat even him. So what's happening is that these ladies are insisting on a particular type. They're finding out that that's not Superman, that these men are still men with normal flesh and blood limits and weaknesses, which is okay. And what they're doing with these dudes is they start cheating on them and treating them bad. So it is very disingenuous for you to sit up at 6'3", talking about how if you act like this, you're not going to be mistreated. Man, look, I already know, and I'm not telling you this to whine and complain. I'm telling you this so that you understand that that black pill man's complaint was actually valid, and you need to come to grips with that. Maybe it's over before it started. Maybe he can fix it and change things. Maybe he cannot. What I can tell you is that when you tell these men about self-improvement, that's okay as long as you include what you left out. And that is that once you finish the self-improvement, the ones in the West are not worth it. Don't reward them with it. Because they need self-improvement and no one's telling them, and they don't even want to hear it. You can't tell a Western woman that they need self-improvement. Try to tell a Western woman that they need self-improvement too, because they're ditzy and dumb and childish, that they haven't reached their potential as adult women because they've never had to. Try telling them that. They're just going to refuse. But you're telling men, okay, well then that means that when men do make self-improvements, the last ones they should reward with these improved versions of themselves are the Western ditzy, wicked witches. Shouldn't do it. So what does that mean? When they become this improved version of themselves, they have a choice to make. Stay in the West because you like that first world level of comfort, but stay by yourself. Because the Wicked Witch of the West, you're never alpha enough for the Wicked Witch of the West, and you need to know that. So that's number one. Second option, you decide you want to be with someone. You don't want to stay by yourself. Then prepare to leave the West. You missed that part. But what you didn't understand, and I don't blame you if you didn't realize the depths of this, but I'm telling you, and now you are accountable because you know this, is that when you aren't their first choice, the scrutiny is impossible. You can't prove them wrong. They have decided that some other things are wrong with you too, and you can't convince them otherwise. They can't come to that conclusion. When I was growing up in my hometown, the only way that things changed between me and the women of my race was when I became violent with other boys to solve problems. Now I'm knuckling up and solving problems with fists. This was in my late teens. I could do that legally and get away with it. And then, of course, I saw the attention change from the black women in my hometown. But that's what it took. I didn't fight to win the women over. I found out from fighting that this would win them over. This was enough to compensate now. But then when I moved to Atlanta, I was right back where I started. They didn't know about the fights I had. I was too old anyway. I was an adult, so I'm right back to where I started. A phenotype that's not black enough, not after 1989. And no history of violence to compensate for it. That's where I was. Every single thing I did or said was highly scrutinized. And this would be without me even making the effort to try to get numbers and things like that. It was highly scrutinized. And by the time I was done with college, I was so thoroughly confused about what they wanted that there was nothing I could do except make it worse. Being open, giving someone a chance would only make it worse, because you see, there's no right time to lean in for that first kiss. There's no right time to go and try to unbutton their bras. There's no right time, no right way to do it. Every time is the wrong time and every way is the wrong way. What's the reason? What I mean by that is that even when they might have been interested, They were already trained to just over scrutinize. And not just me, but many guys. And so everything you do is wrong, and they don't even realize how they've been trained to over scrutinize or why they're doing it to you and not to other guys. They're not aware of this. But your confidence and your self-respect become arrogance, or they see them as fake. They're not real. Any humility, because you are human with limits, they see as low self-esteem. Or they see it as just humble bragging. But they can't even imagine you being a balanced person in the middle. It's not possible. What do you do in a case like that? You didn't tell him that, sir. You didn't even want him to explain what he was facing to you. It really is impossible for some of these cats. What they should do, sure, work on their finances if they can, work on their physiques if they can, but these are for their own benefits. The only women that should ever benefit from these efforts are not the wicked witches of the West, even if they're Muslim Western women. Matter of fact, especially them. I wish you would mention that, but you didn't. And this is why I had to go in on you. And I granted, you didn't know how bad it is for them in terms of the ways that they're being judged. I mean, it's like being judged by the opposite race that's your enemy. Everything you do is going to be judged negatively because you belong to the race they hate. It's similar to that. I mean, think about the verse that you and I read from the book. Chapter 2, verse 120. In English, it's translated that the Jews and Christians aren't going to accept us until we leave our religion for their way. Not even for their religion, because they don't follow it, but for their way. There's a verse that tells us this. You ain't going to get their approval. It's not going to happen. Individually, there will be those who will respect you, but you're not going to get we Muslims are not going to get a blanket approval from Jews or Christians as long as we are a distinct religious group from them. Period. Okay? So they're never going to approve. Well, that's what normal men are facing when it comes to these Western women. Everything they do is seen in a negative light. Even the efforts to self-improve, like what you say, it's seen in a negative light. You didn't know this, and that's fine. But when that man was going to try to tell you, you immediately went into one of your own rages. I don't care about your excuses. Yeah, well, what about when they're valid? And this is unbecoming of a Muslim. It is manly to reject dumb excuses. It's not manly to reject valid excuses when you can see why they would be valid. And there's nothing wrong with a man giving the benefit of the doubt when people make excuses if you don't know they're valid or not. So you give the benefit of the doubt. That's not an unmanly thing to do. It doesn't make you stupid. You just say, you know what? I don't know that situation. I'll give the benefit of the doubt in the meantime. That's fine. You didn't lose any measure of masculinity or manhood when you did so. I hope this helps you. Thanks again for listening to part 2. Assalamu alaikum. Black heart, black mind, blackout. And black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.